Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Your Finance TV to look at your week ahead and what's going to be a very busy week for earnings. Now, we know it's a great Monday, so we're back here with Brendan after celebrating his birthday weekend, and he's still in one piece. But also, there's great news overnight of Twitter rebranding to X. I don't really know what that means. I'm not sure if Brendan does, but maybe it was a sneaky little birthday surprise for him. How are you, Brendan?
I'm good. I didn't even know they rebranded, so I'm not fully involved. I guess I'm not fully aware. I haven't looked at Twitter this morning, but thank you. Good morning.
Morning. All right. Before we kick off, don't forget to click on that like and subscribe button below. Numbers have been really jumping in the last couple of weeks, so thank you very much for your support. Okay. The Fed is meeting this week before going on vacation, and a 25 BIP increase is expected. Focus will be on their commentary, of course. We've covered this topic in previous shows. Check out those previous shows to hear Brendan's thoughts on that. We're going to concentrate on a huge earnings week for this period and discuss a few names before the 3L picks. On Tuesday's pre-market, Biogen is going to be reporting. And we'll be interested in hearing more about their Alzheimer drug. Now, don't quote me on how this is pronounced, but Leqembi. It's also developed with ISI. Analysts predict it has potential to surpass $2 billion in peak annual sales in the US alone. But regulatory requirements are a hurdle, as we're all aware with anything with a new drug. What do you think we could see from this report, Brendan?
So Biogen's interesting. Last 4 years, they always tend to beat in July by varied amounts. I can't explain why. I have no idea. I didn't look back. But it appears that this is one of those earnings periods where they tend to downplay what they're going to forecast, and then they beat it. So July has a good history of beats. But over the past 2 years, earnings have been trending lower. So something like Leqembi, I couldn't say it either. This is a massive stock. I know for Alzheimer's through my mother. She worked with Alzheimer's patients, so she would always share what was going on in terms of things that Alzheimer's people deal with. It's a terrible, terrible disease. And it's one of those. If this drug is able to do what it does and get Alzheimer's early, it stands to make a massive dent into the healthcare business in general. Because Alzheimer's is so crippling, and I'm not sure you've dealt with it, but I've seen it. I've heard about it. It's just one of those diseases that it's a drag on healthcare. It's terrible for families, terrible for emotions. You sit there and you wonder, people forget who they are. They don't know who they are. They don't know who the other people are. And all that carries a cost, whether it's emotional, whether it's financial. If Biogen, I think the FDA rejected their previous one on this, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So I don't know how strong this one is compared to Lilly's, which I think is coming out as well. But this is a big deal for Biogen because the earnings story hasn't moved in 2 years. Revenues are flat, earnings are flat. This is a really big deal, and it could be a game changer. It's not a cure for cancer, but Alzheimer's is a massive drag on a lot of resources. If people can if they can fix this, they get in front of Alzheimer's. It could be a huge market. I mean, I think they're saying 2 billion. Is that what you said? 2 billion?
Yeah, for the US $2 billion market.
It's 2 billion here, but imagine what the offset. If you prevent Alzheimer's from coming, you prevent a lot of the what also follows from Alzheimer's, the body breaking down, the mind, lots of different things. This could be a massive game changer. Now, with that said, the way the stock is trading, I'm not sure the analyst community or the traders actually believe it's going to be that big a deal. Maybe because of the previous rejection, I'm not sure. So I think this earnings report is really big for Biogen. They got to tell everybody, all right, or share. If it's good news, they have to share. Yes, this will be a huge report for us, huge dollars for us from the drug. It's going to change society. It's going to help families. It's a really big deal. Just based on all the stuff you hear about Alzheimer's, it's such a bad disease. People can live for years with it, not know what's going on. Imagine if you can eliminate all that. I think this would be huge. I hope it is huge. But the way the stock is trading, I don't think investors actually believe it's going to be. So that might be an upside to the story, or maybe I'm just too optimistic because I've seen too much of it. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember when the last update came out and this way the stock got hammered afterwards, and then it rebounded over a period of time. There's a lot of hope in it, and obviously everyone out there, I think you'd be very lucky if you haven't been touched by Alzheimer's during many years now. It's this, obviously, I don't think we're going to hear anything from the FDA, obviously, but as you say, if this does work and it comes through, it's going to be huge for the company.
It's a massive problem in healthcare in general. It's just a drag. It's like it's every little new drug like this fixes healthcare and high costs, and from an emotional standpoint, it's that you eliminate that extra issues that come from it. It's a huge stock. It's not a cure for cancer or anything like that, but Alzheimer's is huge in this country, and it's got massive implications in terms of how many other costs it creates, other healthcare places that it touches. If you get rid of all those trees of need, you're going to help a lot of people, and this is what this drug could do.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Texas Instruments, and they report Tuesday after market. The stock has been range bound over the last 12 months. Could these earnings be the catalyst for a breakout? Obviously, we've all seen the White House plans to bring more chip production to the US, but last week, Taiwan Semis delayed production at its factory in Arizona. Could Texas Instruments be benefit from this, Brendan?
I'm unsure. We're in a global market, so it's not like the U.S. government's going to give Texas Instruments more money if Taiwan Semis is slowing its growth. But I would say if the delay does last longer, that will hurt sales. It always does. If you can't produce chips. With that said, though, the chips that Taiwan is producing here are not as powerful as the ones overseas. Thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know why they can't create the same ones here, but what do I know? Charts of both these players, but it's interesting when you say will one benefit over the other. Well, if you look at the charts of both of them, Texas Instruments is breaking out, Taiwan Semi is breaking down. So I don't know if this is like one of those stories where investors don't really look beyond the headlines and see that Taiwan Semi hasn't told everybody they delayed for years. They just delayed in the short term. Whereas Texas Instruments, they're in a lot of businesses that are slowing right now. Autos, that stock is actually going the opposite way, which argues that perhaps their businesses are picking up steam. I don't know. Maybe it's again short term. Revenues and earnings, not a big picture, not a good picture for Texas Instruments. Revenues are at their lowest point in 2 years, so demand has fallen off for their products. So this government handout, essentially what it is, which I just stupid in my opinion. I think they need this. They need the money to grow, I guess. But will it change demand for their products? I don't know. Sentiment standpoint, stock has very low expectations, it appears. As analysts are neutral. That's a good thing if you're an investor. You want the analysts to be neutral and not involved. The crowd seems to be very negative too. So I don't know how. I was telling you before, this new website has all these metrics in terms of sentiment. Like Biogen before had like a tremendous amount of buy ratings. Everybody's positive on the darn thing, and so is the bloggers. You look at this one, analysts are neutral, the crowd seems negative, and bloggers are the only thing that's positive. So, and there's insiders buying, I believe. So this is a show me stock as well. Lowest, they need to see revenue growth turn. They need to tell everybody, yeah, revenue is going to rise going forward. We're going to benefit from this deal with the U.S. government. Blah 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 blah, and that can show this. That could get the stock moving further. It'd be interesting to hear what Taiwan has to like. If they have any comments in Taiwan, they probably wouldn't. Taiwan Semi, they probably won't talk about them, but they need to start showing growth so the stock can stay in its breakout. That's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, I think with the Taiwan Semi side, it was more a case of they couldn't find enough skilled workers to work in the new factory.
Yeah.
Which is, I think it's a problem for everyone, not just Taiwan Semi.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a call with somebody, forget who it was, but I was talking to somebody last week about a factory on the grocery side. And they said that they're having trouble finding people that can handle the technology in the warehouse because it's evolving so much. Maybe Taiwan's running into the same sort of thing. I personally, I think these people are being a little picky, but technology is supposed to a human being like works with the technology and adapts the technology to their use. These people are going the other way for whatever reason. Taiwan might be doing the same thing. They might be saying, all right, we can't find enough people to run the tech, or they're being too picky. And I think the job market largely looks like that. People are being really picky. And I think that at some point they'll just relent and start. Wages are high for a lot of people. They don't want to pay it. I think they'll have to relent if they want to fill that factory.
Okay, let's move on. Well, this is actually a sort of reverse story talking about government contracts and so forth. On Wednesday pre-market, AT&T report. And investors will be looking for positive news as the stock is down 20% year to date. New subscriber numbers have been dropping, and they need to break that trend. There are concerns regarding their possible exposure to lead sheath cables installed in phone networks, and we saw their share price hit a 30-year low on the back of that story before recovering the next day. Brendan, they've just recently lost a government contract. What are your thoughts on AT&T?
T's been a dog since I came into the business years and years ago. It's just mismanaged, too big, too bloated, too dividend dependent, no growth whatsoever. It was a $30-something stock, I think, before they spun off something, right? I can't remember what they spun off, but the stock itself, this is like, nothing to see here. It's got an 8% dividend yield because people expect them to cut the dividend again, it appears. This thing with lead, Goldman and Morgan both believe it's going to be like a $4 billion hit. So they have no revenue growth and no earnings growth. I know they beat last quarter, but whoopee, 1 penny. Woo-hoo. This is a stock that, you trade it for the short term. It had a very nice turn last week off the low level. A beautiful turn, actually, if anything. It looks very bullish turn. But I just don't really, this is not a stock that I would really get into. I'd avoid this at all costs, to be honest. You can trade it and do what you want with it, but this is not a long-term hold anymore. In my previous life as a financial advisor, people swore by this stock for its dividend yield. And time after time after time, it disappointed and fell lower. So it would just go 4 points lower every time. People are finally throwing it in, and that might be why the stock sank so much. I know the lead story's big, but $4 billion on their balance sheet is not a tremendous hit, I don't believe. I would just say, earnings-wise, if this stock's going to rally significantly or it's going to hold this low 14s, it needs to start seeing some revenue and earnings growth. And they're in a bunch of businesses that don't feature such. AT&T wireless, the wireless wars are very competitive. Ironically, when I think of AT&T and the wireless wars, I thought when Apple went into this business back in 2007, I think is when they started doing the phones. I thought this would have been what Apple ran into then. And now it's Apple. I don't know how Apple's going to deal with falling earnings on the AT&T side because AT&T subsidizes all these phones. I will just say if they remove some of the subsidies AT&T does, they'll find some growth and some earnings. But they're in businesses that are just terrible. And now this lead thing seems to be another problem, especially if it's underwater. Goldman said it costs them so much higher to clean it up if it's underwater. The stock is trash. I guess that's how my son would call it. It had a nice turn though, so you could trade. There's probably a trade here to the upside, but this is not this is not an earnings story. You don't buy this on earnings. It's still spitting out a 7.5% dividend, but I'm guessing that will be cut, especially if this lead thing picks up steam. So any excuse to cut the dividend to save cash flow, they'll probably cut it. So I trade it. I wouldn't buy it for the long term. The stock, it probably got hit too much last week, but
I saw an article from New Street saying that estimates for the cost of cleaning this up are way too high, and I think that must have been the catalyst for that rally last week. But it really, as you've touched on there, it really does depend on the dividend story for the long-term holders and this sort of side of it. The mum and dad sitting at home, like going, "Is this going to give me revenue through the year holding this stock?" You have to weigh up the risk reward, right? So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this one.
It's a long-term holding in a lot of dividend portfolios, and I wonder if dividend players just dumped it. This is news they don't want to hear.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the last one. It's a big one. Microsoft, they report Tuesday aftermarket. Several analysts have increased their estimates going into these earnings. The hot topic of AI is potentially a big winner for them with ChatGPT, AI-enabled Bing search, and last week they announced 365 Copilot, an AI-enabled version of its widely used Microsoft Office 365 app. With the stock up 43% year to date, can these numbers keep up the momentum, Brendan? And I know you may have had a change of heart on AI.
I have. I will say that. I use GPT for a lot. GPT stunk 4 months ago. Honest to God, it was weak. I kept getting this. I don't have knowledge beyond 2021 crap. I didn't particularly care for it. GPT has grown leaps and bounds since then. I was talking to my wife's nephew about it. He says that so I use GPT on the base. There's 3 options. The third option, I forget what you call it, but that third option it's like develop your own apps with GPT in there. It is very powerful if you're a coder, if you understand that stuff. I haven't used it much, but GPT's uses at the local level here at Column E has been really good for me. I've started using it for a variety of sources. It's interesting, though, they talk about how AI enabled Bing. That was driven because Google's Bard was already doing all this stuff already. I was using Bard before I used Chat GPT because Bard already had all these answers that Bing is now gives you. Bing's been dressed up, looks kind of cool. You use Bard, you're going to get the same answers. So Google and Microsoft are going head to head on this in terms of search. I always thought Google's search would be better. So I still think they might win out on that because they've been in the business longer. But this AI thing is what is, I think, analysts' expectations for this quarter are driven by. You're seeing an earnings breakout, if you will, for this quarter. They've had relatively flat earnings for a while, since 2022. So this is a really big deal for them. A lot of hot topics. They got to forecast better revenues. Actually, not only forecast, but they actually have to produce better revenues. I like this. The funny thing about this AI on the web is, I mean, we all know what pets.com was, and everybody had eyeballs and websites back in the day. Well, there's a lot of these AI things on the web that you can simply go to ChatGPT's interface and get the answers for. But people are paying like $8, $9 a month for this garbage. And it's like, I don't know how good or bad that is. I don't know if it's like people are making money off this thing, but it's not. It's like I'm mixed on it. Like, you don't have to pay the money to get the answers. You can just go to the ChatGPT interface and get the answers. And a lot of people are taking advantage of it. So I wonder if that actually works backwards at some point and hurts Microsoft. I don't know. The stock did get over 340. This is a big deal. It's a breakout over a range. But the candle last week was very weak, no pun intended. It doesn't the breakout occurred 2 weeks ago. It gets over the range. It goes higher last week and then moves lower. Not a great shape. So I think investors are not super sold on AI actually hitting, like the numbers hitting for the breakout earnings being that good for this quarter as analysts expecting. I'm not sure what NVIDIA did, or have they reported yet for this quarter?
I don't believe so.
All right, so NVIDIA will be the big key because NVIDIA is all AI all the time, right? If these AI focused companies start hitting earnings on these sort of things, and they're all generating $8 or $9 a month, like silly money, and people just throwing money into stuff, you'll start seeing these stocks benefit from it. If these stocks don't start showing any revenue or earnings from the stuff, and ChatGPT is free, so it's not like I'm paying for it. And I have the Microsoft, the 365. We just actually moved over to it. The AI stuff is not that great, and so far, I don't know. I think it's limited. I use this. I've been using it anyway. Aside from that, the stock's over 340. The way I would play this is if they meet on earnings, or they actually guide earnings up thanks to AI driving that extra alpha, I think the stock will run to 380. Anything less than that, I think the stock will lose the 340 support and move lower. So this is a big report for Microsoft. It's like a show me on the AI. We've been at this for 4 months. Where's the revenue? Show me AI, that sort of thing. Plus, we're in July. If they were to miss earnings, I think the hit would be bigger only because people are going on vacation. They'll sell the stock and then they'll come back in September and rebuild. So it's a big report for them. It's a big report for AI in general, if anything.
Yeah, it's interesting because, as I said, like analysts have been upgrading their earnings estimates going into this. I don't know whether that means they were behind beforehand or now they're seeing AI change that sort of side of it. But also, and you saw the sell off the last 3 days of last week after a big move on Tuesday. It's going to be interesting. Like on their AI side, and you're going to be talking with Mehdi next week. He knows a bit more about this, but they've done AI so that you can just do coding, like just tell them what you want to do, and the coding pops it up, which is obviously a very big change on that front. And they sort of fly a little bit under the radar with that. Obviously, the people a bit more into that side of it will know more of it. But the company is just a winner over and over again. And it's any decent sell-off is a great buying opportunity in my perspective.
Yeah, no, this Saudi Nadella, right? That's the CEO, right? He has been a winner. Bomber was the lead weight in that stock for years, and he shows up, and the stock has been a super winner. It's like Bill Gates showed up himself or something. It's been a powerful company. It's risen. I don't know what its valuations look like, but it's been a big player. I will say with AI, I did find a story somewhere that did say AI was slowing somewhere, and I know the coding thing. I played with the coding thing. Some of the code has not always been right. It's like you search for an earnings story and you ask what the Fed's going to do, or you ask what the current sentiment of Feds. Like I've been using ChatGPT on Twitter to see how Twitter sentiment is on something going in. I didn't run it today. I didn't run it on X, whatever the heck Twitter's renaming itself. I didn't run it today to find out what these stocks were, but it actually gave me I would say, tell me what the last 4 hours of tweets related to this stock has shown. And it will do a sentiment rundown, which is remarkable, but it doesn't cover every tweet. So it's limited in that regard. I saw some article that said that we're hitting we've hit the apex in terms of the benefits of the search side of this. And now the applications really have to take hold. So I don't know. I'm not that familiar with it. All I know is it does save me a lot of time when I write stuff. It changes the lingo of research so it's better understood by the average reader. It does a lot of good things like that. But for coding, it has produced bad code for me. So I'm like looking at it, trying to figure out why. So is it better for me to write the code and know it's right, or have something produce that code and have me go back and try to figure out why it's wrong? It's one of those catch-22s.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to 3Ls. Some great names reporting this week. Probably have a little bit controversial. We don't have Google anywhere in this show for earnings this week, but I think everyone can probably get a lot of insights from other places for that. We're going to be focusing on these 6 names. They will report this week, as I said. Brendan, are you ready to go?
Let's go.
All right. Tuesday pre-market, we have GE.
Been a very nice run for the stock since last October. The candles this week, though, are a bit problematic. However, I like it. Watching 115 on the upside, which isn't a lot, but it's skipping. So it's really powerful right now. A breakthrough 105 could encourage the bears to pounce on the downside, but I like it.
Okay. Next one we're looking at is Boeing, and they report Wednesday pre-market.
Talking about dogs. Boeing, I'd leave it. Lots of indecision at the moment and failed to take out 215. So I would just leave it.
Okay. Also, Wednesday aftermarket is Meta.
I like it. Lots of space for it to correct lower, however. So it's kind of a worrisome in that regard. But the upside's still a bit there. So I like it.
Exxon is on Friday pre-market.
Very interesting stock. Should give you a good idea of what they're doing with $65, $70 oil. I'd leave it. Looks like it wants to get through the 65 week on the downside. It wants to get to the 65 week at 97.
All right. Mastercard is Thursday aftermarket.
Like it. I wondered how long it would take Mastercard to really break higher because they're earning 20% on their credit cards, or they earn the toll fee, if you will. But they should be doing well with everybody using their credit cards. So I like it entering new ranges. 400 may slow it, but it gets over 400, it should run.
Okay, and the last one is Ford, and their Thursday aftermarket.
Ford represents the weakness in autos right now, and what Tesla's doing to the EV market by dropping prices so aggressively. I believe it. Nasty reversal on the chart last week. Looks like it's going to this. Looks like it's going lower.
Okay, well, that wraps up the show for us today, Brendan. Thank you so much for your insights, and I hope you're as excited as I am about the company's reporting this week.
I am. It's a fun week for earnings, and have a great couple of weeks of vacation.
Thank you very much. For everyone else out there, good luck investing.